Welcome to the Full FX Unfiltered. My name is Colin Lambert. I'm publisher of the Full FX, and this edition is in association with smartTrade. And I'm delighted to be joined by John Stead, who is Pre-Sales and Marketing Director at smartTrade. John, nice to see you again.
Thank you, Colin. Good to be here.
Obviously, smartTrade is known for its trading technology, but I thought it'd be good to talk to you about something that's growing as an issue maybe in the industry and in your business, which is payments. Because it's largely been overlooked for quite some time. It's just there, it happens. But that world is evolving, and you guys are looking at that in a lot more depth now. What are you doing there as smartTrade?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Yeah, so you're right. So typically, smartTrade's been very well known for liquidity FX, which is a product for the trading space. Yeah. But we also have a product called Commercial Banking Payments, CBP, and that's aimed squarely in the payments area. And I'm really conscious that trading and payments tend to live in separate worlds, don't always talk as much as they should. However, the payments business is fundamental for trading. Yeah. If you think about, some banks, up to 80% of their FX flows can come from the payment space. Yeah. So actually, what I would say is before the audience switches off and I am talking about payments, actually, if you think 80% of your business flows potentially coming from payments, those flows are quite soft. Yeah. The margins pretty wide on the payments. So having those flows, keeping those flows is really important.
But then I guess competition will grow in that space, which means that those margins maybe do become squeezed a bit, which means we turn back to our old friend, technology, to actually make things better.
Yeah, and there was a really interesting plug here for Colin. There was an article on the Full FX website.
We love a good plug.
Thank you. You can return the favour.
Yes.
There was an article on your website actually about there was a survey on the payment space talking about how satisfied are SMEs with their payments offering. So I think about 3/4 of them said that they still use a traditional bank for payments, which means that 25% have already moved their business away from a bank. This lucrative business has already gone. About half of them said they felt the pricing was, I think, unfair or uncompetitive. And another 50% also thought that the business was too slow, the processes were too slow to actually get payments done. So clearly there is a problem there to solve. I know everybody's predicted the demise of high street banks forever, and we're all still with it. I'm with my bank for 30 years, I haven't changed, and a lot of customers are like that. There's an inertia, but banks cannot rest on their laurels. These neo-banks don't have the legacy platforms, the legacy costs, and they are coming for that lucrative business.
Right. So what problem then are you solving for? You kind of outlined it there, but who are you also problem solving for?
So the who would be the high street banks or the banks rather offering commercial payments, corporate payments, these kinds of things. Yeah. Some of the problems that they are facing in industry, one I already said is the legacy payments, the legacy processes, which we can get to. There is and again, don't switch off, the ISO 20022 format. So this is a changing in standards of payments protocols. So why is this important? Well, this is going to be the de facto standard throughout the whole industry around, I think, 2025. What this means is that banks have to change their technology, this protocol, to actually from maybe the Swift message or some proprietary format to using this new format, which if you imagine back office systems, books of records, these are very hard things to change and migrate and update. So actually having a system that can cope with these new protocols is key, and even actually manage different protocols in real time. So what we're providing, one of the things with our CBP product, is an overlay over the top of their systems, which not only allows them to take payments, make the FX rates, all these things, but also can cope with this new standard format and interface with systems that are not speaking this new language yet. So there's a kind of the ISO 222, which you might ask, well, what's the point of that? Why is it being changed?
What's the point of that, and why is it being changed?
You might ask that. I'm glad you've asked that, Colin. I think this goes back to a few years ago, there was a G20 summit, and I think one of the background things for those was actually to kind of reduce the friction in payments, to actually get reduce these kind of breakages and friction and get the global economy moving as much as possible. One of those actually is, okay, if we had a common format for payments, wouldn't that make everything more efficient? So reduce breakages, reduce manual processes, but also if you have a richer format, you've got more chance to actually package up all the stuff like the AML checks. Like if I need to pay you money, obviously there's lots of AML, KYC, money laundering, all this kind of checks need to be made. The more standardization you have in your messaging, the better for that, which means less manual processes. People are very expensive, people make mistakes, more efficiency, and then also you can get into things like data mining because you're having a lot more data being transmitted in a lot more readable format. You can then mine that data for new services, innovation. So part of it's about efficiency with this new format. Part of it's obviously creating new opportunities and helping the economy and reducing friction in payments.
I mean, you mentioned their legacy systems. I mean, how easy is it, or sorry, I think the question should be, how difficult is it to actually replace these legacy systems, especially in a field where I imagine the ticket throughput, for want of a better word, is so high compared to an institutional FX trading desk?
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. You've alluded to it. Replacing any back office platform is horrifically hard. I mean, in the front office where I'm usually sitting, it's already an effort to change your front office trading platform. That already takes a lot of time. We hear of people, and I won't mention the names, taking years and years to replace their back office platforms. So this is not something that, obviously people do change and update and migrate these things, but having a platform like CBP over the top that actually helps with that gives them immediate benefits in terms of capturing new business, empowering customers, blah, 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 that kind of stuff that we can come to. But actually, migrating your back office, that's another world of pain, I'm sure.
Yeah. And actually, I'm loving you as an interviewee, by the way. You're giving me the questions up front. It's great, which is always good for this audience, believe me. I mean, so how is it evolving, this world, and what are you doing for clients to actually help them through this evolution?
So what and kind of going back to the survey on the Full FX website, so what customers are complaining about, obviously, rates not being very competitive in payments, systems slow and hard to use. So what we've done in smartTrade, obviously we've got the knowledge typically on the front office side with Liquidity FX, with all the kind of aggregation, distribution, all that good stuff, actually saying, what of that tech can we bring into the payment space? So things like, if you're making payments, a lot of people today have fixed rates for payments, regardless of the client, regardless of the size. You've got, a window where the rate is stuck. Sometimes you need to be, sometimes that's fine. Sometimes you need to be a lot more competitive to attract your business. So do you have a semi-frozen rate, a free floating rate, etc.? You've got to match up the rate you show your customers for payments with what do they need to see, how sophisticated are they? Be a lot more flexible in the rates that you're quoting. So that's one thing. Be more competitive by quoting a proper rate that actually reflects the risk to the bank. Then also, how do you manage that risk? When the customer trades with you and makes that payment, are you netting up that risk? Again, a lot of legacy platforms are just saying, okay, we'll net up all the payments risk, and then once a day or a couple of times a day, we'll push it to the trading desk, here's all that dealt risk, go manage it. Whereas what they should probably really be doing is saying, let's mark to market that risk. Maybe we'll have different levels depending on the time of day, the size. If it's Friday evening, we're going to be happy to net up much less risk than if it's, say, midday, New York Open or something like that. So being a lot more sophisticated in how you manage the risk you get from customers, that's a key problem to solve.
Yeah, and to your point, the numbers can actually be quite big.
Up to 80% of flows. So these are huge flows. Okay, they're soft flows. They're not directional. No one's arbing you with a payment.
But you could still have that issue where you suddenly have a large risk on the books. It's probably better to manage that on the way up rather than wait for it to become the mountain and have the market move for some totally unrelated reason.
Absolutely. And so one thing is around kind of managing risk and being more competitive, which is on that side here. The other thing which we feel the market really does need, and we've done a lot in Liquidity FX, is, it's a bit of a catchphrase, empowering customers. And what does that mean in payments? Well, payments all about SSI, settlement instructions. For large corporates, they're going to have probably what we'd call the 6 I's process, which is someone sets up some payment details, somebody makes an FX trade, somebody authorizes it to go off. Now, those are all different people, so you don't have someone sending money wherever they shouldn't. So giving corporate the power to actually decide who has all those roles, to set up their own SSIs, to make sure they're checked properly. Previously, banks have been managing that all for them. You'd, whatever corporation, call me up and say, okay, I want this person to manage this person to do that. We can give you all of the ability to set up and manage all your own roles. So this is basically the bank giving the customers the power to manage all of those roles, manage all their details.
Yeah.
Twofold reasons for that. One is it gives the customers a lot more control and they're a lot happier, they can manage that themselves. The banks on their side, that frees them up to do things that they're better at, which is, administering client roles. It's not really a bank key skill,
No.
but they can give that to the customers, they can choose that kind of thing. So it's giving the customers those kinds of tools. And around in the payment space, you've got a lot more flexibility, like should you use, I don't know, a time option, a window forward, a swap, a spot.
Yep.
The customers can decide all of that. Everything is given to them now.
Yeah, which is certainly the way the world's going. We can't talk about payments without talking about new technology and how that's changing the world, because I'm still getting people inundating me every day saying this is the future of the world, and I'm still waiting for it. But I'm sure one day they'll be right, like a stop clock. It'll be right twice a day. What are the future trends here, though? I mean, how is new technology actually influencing what you're offering and the payment space more generally?
So the future is now, Colin.
Oh, okay, good. You heard it here first.
So some of the most exciting areas that we're working on, of course, payments is very exciting. We have an offering here, but where's it going next is the question. So we have already an AI offering, which is looking at kind of using machine learning to predict things on the trading side. You can use that in payments as well. So a lot of payments tend to be regular. So from a customer, what can I do as a bank? I can be telling my customers, don't usually make these kinds of payments on these days. Have you forgotten a payment? That could be an interesting one. You can also look at structuring things for customers. So if the customer can upload, here's all the payments I need to make. I've got this coming in, this. The platform will be able to suggest, here's the best way to structure that. Well, I recommend, based on your parameters, that we should do a swap here, we should do a window forward, we should do these kinds of things. So it can take all of your payments, propose you something. This is where it's going. This will be something that we will see very shortly in the industry, is auto-structuring of deals based on intelligence. So that's one area you can look at. On the bank side, obviously, they've got to fund all of their correspondent network. They can use predictive analytics to see, what do I need to fund, what's going to happen. That's pretty expensive. So if they can actually manage their cash flows much better, that's an interesting area. We had and this, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention Smart Copilot, but how that was typically on the trading side, but also you can use it on the payment side. So you can imagine you're a corporate who, you're making chairs, whatever you do. You're not an FX specialist. Imagine if you could just type in, I want to pay Steve for this, and it will say, are these Steve's account details? When do you want him to get the money? When does it need to be delivered? That's what you can do with these LLM models, is actually just enable people to write in. It will build a trading ticket for you. It will fill in the payment instructions. You then don't need to have any specialist knowledge to do it. This can be a corporate treasurer, obviously, but Smart Copilot would allow them to actually build the ticket, maybe bring in extra details like, okay, you're about to make this payment. You usually make another payment in a few days' time. Would you like to also make that now? It can make the job easier for you. That's on the client side. And on the sales side, they can see something going in. It can say, well, this client also does this and this and this. Maybe you should call them because they haven't done that. So it's like a kind of a digital assistant for your client. That's really about, I would say, it is about empowering clients, but it's also about making it easier for people that aren't FX specialists, which, if you're a bank and you have those corporate clients, they have to do FX, but it's not their reason for doing their job. They're a corporate, they're manufacturing things. You want to make it as easy as possible and cost efficient for them to do their business.
I think we got through the whole interview without mentioning AI.
I snuck it in.
You snuck it in, but I thought predictive analytics was particularly good there. John, I mean, it is a fascinating space, and it is good to actually hear what's happening in the payment space, because I think you're right. Most of people like myself that sat on the trading desk, we had no idea what's going on in the payments world, and frankly, we had no idea where most of our flow came from. So thanks very much for your time today and updating us on that. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back again very soon.